are we just irrational about in thinking that we know all of these things? We can't refute the arguments. Nonetheless, we can't bring ourselves to accept that skepticism is true, that we never really know anything. And I did mention that there are a few skeptics. In fact, there's one very famous skeptic who's a member of the philosophy faculty at New York University, a man named Peter Unger, wrote a book, Ignorance. But going back, we really have to think pretty carefully about, is there a premise in those arguments that we just reviewed that we can deny? That when it's not just so we can deny, obviously we can deny whatever you want, but we can deny with good reason. That is, we can say that's the premise that's false, that's the premise that's questionable. Well, the interesting thing is, if we take a look at all of the arguments, the second premise, according to the second premise of all the arguments, we have to be able to exclude or sometimes prove things about which, we have to be able to exclude hypotheses about which we have no evidence. Sometimes we have to be able to believe them, in the case of the last argument, in order to be reasonable in believing anything about the future, the past, or the external world. If we go back to the meteorite hitting argument, we have to be able to exclude the possibility that the meteorite hits, according to the premise, in order for us to be reasonable in believing something about the future. We have to be able to exclude the Russell hypothesis in order to be able to know anything about the past. That's what the second premise is asserting in that argument. And in the Locke argument, the Locke hypothesis argument, we have to be able to prove an hypothesis that we have no way of proving. It's just not the thing that's susceptible to proof. Scientific theories or theories about perception aren't provable. Well, but are these reasonable premises? And what I want to suggest is many people, maybe most people, think that they're justified in believing things like the Statue of Liberty will be standing tomorrow morning, even though they can't prove that. You can't prove the hypothesis or prove the appropriate hypothesis is false. So let's really focus in on the Statue of Liberty example. The point is that we certainly, the question is, do we know that a meteorite won't strike? And we started that we don't know that we don't, but it seems to me that perhaps we can say that, well, we have evidence. Why? We have really good reason for thinking that the Statue of Liberty will be standing tomorrow morning, and that when we drive by it on the Bell Parkway, we're going to see the greenish Statue of Liberty sitting there. And we've driven down that road for how many times? Numerous times, numerous days, and it's been there every single day. So it seems we have pretty good reason to believe that, and we have pretty good reason to believe, by the same token, that that meteorite isn't going to be striking because it has not struck. We could have really good reason for believing it, and we could be like those unfortunate individuals in Russia that got hit by the meteorite. They had good reason for believing that a meteorite was not going to strike, but their luck ran out on that one. So I think what you might say is good evidence or justified belief does not require proving any alternative being wrong. That is, we don't have to be able to exclude every single possibility that will make our contingent proposition false in order to be justified in believing a contingent proposition, in order to be justified in order for us to have good evidence, strong enough evidence, evidence strong enough for knowledge. But what we're going to see as we go through the epistemologies of our particular historical figures, they're going to be looking closely at notions of what is a justified belief, what constitutes justification, and when is evidence, when do you have good enough evidence for believing that yields knowledge.